So, we are back with a little bit of spice. Some quote-unquote hot takes, you could say, but really, they're not hot takes. They're just a bit ahead of their time. Because if this video ends up being like any of my other quote-unquote hot takes, they'll be pretty tame when the Splatoon community finally takes the time to sit down and just think about it. So, if you've heard any of the criticism to Splatoon 3, then you have undoubtedly heard the claim that Splatoon 3 looks too much like Splatoon 2. And it's not like people are saying this for no reason. Yes, from what we've seen, Splatoon 3's multiplayer looks too much like Splatoon 2's. The campaign is fine. In fact, it's probably got the most hype surrounding it right now because from what we've seen of the campaign, Nintendo is actually taking a step in a different direction. Where the issues come up with Splatoon 3 is the multiplayer in Salmon Run. Now, before I go into explaining these criticisms and why they're valid and invalid, please remember that not only am I a Splatoon fan, I am indeed another human being. Please keep your temper tantrums out of my comments and save them for someone who cares. If you want to debate, then that's totally fine. In fact, I challenge you to challenge my ideas. It's what helps us grow not only as Splatoon fans, but as people. Now, let's explain the criticisms of Splatoon 3. Now, right here, I've got two pictures. One's a picture from Splatoon 3, and the other one's from 2. Obviously, us Splatoon fans can tell the differences apart between the two, but show this to someone who's not a Splatoon fan, which one's from Splatoon 3 and which one's from 2. While yes, Nintendo is making small changes for stuff like weapons to distinguish which ones are old and which ones are new hairstyles, one singular new weapon class, a new square, and obviously some new maps, it stings like completely unchanged maps from the first games that are harming the game's reputation. Plus, there's Eeltail Alley looking like it could still be a map from Splatoon 1 or 2 with how it looks aesthetically. Now, of course, I know all of these things could play totally differently than how they play in Splatoon 1 or 2. It could be totally game-changing with a new meta that could take the worst maps from the older games and turn them into the best in the series with the right touch-ups. But good luck with explaining that to someone with waning interest in the Splatoon series who only sees a map from the last game and thinks, wow, they're really reusing the same map again and selling it for another $60. First impressions matter, and that's what Nintendo is failing at. They're trying to make a second Splatoon on the Switch. Making two games in the same series on a Nintendo console is a hard challenge. That's why typically there's only one mainline Nintendo series per entry per system. So if Nintendo is going to try and sell another Splatoon and reach an audience of people that skipped out on 2, they need to make people see that it's a different game. And where a lot of Splatoon 3's criticism comes from is because they're failing to show more than just Splatoon's already existing fans like you and I that this is all new content. It looks like more Splatoon, which is not to say that it is an issue. It is not. For us Splatoon fans, that is. But to entice new people to buy Splatoon, when it's been easily available since 2017 and they've chosen not to, Nintendo needs to make new Splatoon. Where we're getting a lot of stuff that's quote-unquote new Splatoon is stuff like weapon designs, hairstyles, and I just touched on all of this, but either way. But in places where it counts, we're getting quote-unquote more Splatoon. Salmon Run is just getting a little bit added to it, some new bosses, maybe a new type of wave with the King Salmonid. Multiplayer, we've got returning maps that are having difficulty being distinguished between new maps. The new respawn system, I'm not exactly sure where to put this, because I really can't see having a little bit of choice in where you spawn is going to actually help with the big issue of spawn camping when you don't have tons of areas you can actually go to. But a lot of what we're getting is stuff made for pre-existing Splatoon fans. If Splatoon 3 is primarily made for pre-existing fans, then that's okay. It should just be emphasized a little bit more that this is a Splatoon game made to keep older fans invested. Of course, no company wants to tell people that their product is made for a niche and not for everyone. Whatever decision they go for is equally valid, it just creates confusion when no one can tell who the game is being made for. Which ultimately is creating the problem we're dealing with today. An argument can be made that we still haven't seen enough of Splatoon 3 to know for sure yet, but Splatoon 3 is only 3 months away from making this video from being released, and we've been getting updates like every other day from Splatoon Twitter, so it's hard to make the claim we haven't seen enough yet. We've seen a lot. We've gotten a teaser, 3 trailers, tons of info dumps about weapons, specials, gear, all that stuff on Twitter, and obviously, we're going to learn more in an inevitable Splatoon 3 Direct, but that doesn't discredit everything we have already seen. What happens if we don't see enough in the Splatoon 3 Direct? The point I'm trying to make here is that we are very close to the game launching, and what Nintendo has shown us is absolutely valid of spawning criticism. Is it worthy of saying Splatoon 2.5? That's debatable, and in my opinion, no. Not yet, at least. Another problem that I want to talk about but don't really have a nice way to segue it in here properly, so here's a picture of a llama with inkling hair while we transition, is how half-baked of a state the Splatoon games tend to launch in. Splatoon 2 launched with no new multiplayer modes, only had one of the two new types of weapons playable at launch, and had 6 new stages at launch. That is not an appropriate state to launch a game in. While Splatoon 2 is in a good state now, minus the lackluster weapon meta, and it's a fear of Splatoon fans that we are going to get that again with Splatoon 3. It's a valid fear considering it's happened before, and it's happened with other Nintendo games. One game that comes to the top of my head because I watched Scott the Woz before making this video is Mario Golf. It launched in an unfinished state and died out because of it. We don't want Splatoon 3 to see the same fate. And while it's obviously going to be a much bigger game than Mario Golf, no Splatoon fan wants a half-baked Splatoon. We want a finished game that gets even more added on over time. Look, bottom line, I myself am a Splatoon fan. I am totally ready to drop $60 on whatever product Nintendo puts out. My reason for making this video today is because I want to spend my $60 on the best possible product. Just about all Splatoon 3 criticism is made by Splatoon fans that also want the best Splatoon they can buy. This criticism is not in any way about putting the game down and trashing it. It's about being vocal to Nintendo about the game that we want. While you can say that Nintendo isn't listening to what we want, I just don't believe that anymore. A lot of features we've seen shown in Splatoon 3 so far is stuff that the community wanted. Main example is the bow. That whole idea came from the fan creation project Splatoon 3. Nintendo does listen to us. To what extent, we don't know, but listen to me here. Criticism is good. It helps make a better product to spend our money on. I am a Splatoon fan, and I've criticized what I've seen from this game before because I want to play the best Splatoon possible, and oftentimes when I've done it, I've been attacked by my fellow Splatoon fans over having critical ideas. Whatever vision Nintendo has for their Splatoon fans, whether it's being Splatoon 3 being made for new players or returning fans, it needs to be in the best place it can possibly be in, so our $60 can be spent the best way possible. In the end, we are all Splatoon fans here, and we need to listen to criticism that our friends in this community make and not attack them for it. Obviously, if it's just that one guy that hates Splatoon and wants it to fail, leave that guy crying in his corner alone. But us Splatoon fans, let's tell Nintendo what we want so they can deliver the best possible product for us. But anyways, that's it from me. But what do you guys think? Is the Splatoon 3 criticism valid? Which parts aren't and which parts are? Wait, did you know that only 16.8% of the people that watch my videos are subscribed? That is way too low. So if you subscribe right now, you have the slight chance of receiving your very own T-Rex. That's right, I will go back in time and get one for you. Alright gamers, that is it from me. See ya.